Everyone knows about the Looney Tunes, right? Those wisecracking animals that get into wacky and decidedly compromising situations and thwart anyone who thinks they can get away with, well, getting in their way. Well, I would wager that most of you also know about Pokemon, the animal collection game where you have two magical trained animals fighting to the death. The goal is to be the best, like no one ever has been before, right? Right. So what if the Looney Tunes were capturable and could fight to the death? That's right, I'm asking a simple question today. What if the Looney Tunes were Pokemon? Well, I'm no expert in Looney Tune Pokemonology, but as an artist, I think I can at least try and give it my best shot. I'll be doing 4 of the Looney Tunes in this video, and if the mood strikes, I'll do some more. But I think 4 is enough for now. But enough talk. Let's walk.
Oh, Brunhilde, you're so far away.
So I honestly just jumped right into this first one. I didn't want to waste time agonizing over all the potential options I could go for. And honestly, I think jumping straight into it helped ignite my creative juices more than if I had overthought it or done too much planning. I think this is good advice for any creative pursuit. If you overthink too much, you won't get any actual art done, and you won't have nearly as much practical experience as you otherwise would have gotten. I know for me personally, I felt a fair amount of uncertainty going into this Looney Tunes Pokemon project, but I had enough trust in myself that I could come out the other end with the final product that I'm pretty happy with. And as a result of my reckless approach to this whole endeavor, the first evolution I came up with is just a smaller version of Bugs Bunny with beadier eyes. Honestly, this first evolution is just a rabbit. Just a little guy. He's cute. There's not all that much to say about him, so we'll move on to the next evolution. I wanted the second evolution to be the closest to the actual design of Bugs Bunny, so that it could act as a midpoint between 2 lesser and greater evolutions. And I also wanted the overall design of these evolutions to be closer to Pokemon than Looney Tunes. So again, I gave him beady eyes and a more angular mouth, as well as the classic I want to be the best expression with the eyebrows. Nothing screams classic children's anime like young, determined preteens who never age. I also wanted a more dynamic pose for this evolution of Bugs Bunny, so I gave him a weird ballet stance, which I guess evokes his femininity or something, but it's also a sort of pseudo-defensive stance that could feasibly protect him, or at least enhance his balance in combat. I don't know. And for the final evolution, I just started spitballing, throwing a bunch of angular shapes together, drawing an angry expression and an extreme defensive stance with the legs spread apart, and I ended up creating something wildly different from the first 2 evolutions and much more creative. I ended up having a lot of fun with this one. I was originally going to give him pulsating rings on the tips of his ears, but then I realized that that was probably unnecessary as his design is cool enough on its own without any extraneous floating shapes. I didn't really have a type in mind when drawing these evolutions. If I had kept the rings, I probably could have gone with electric type, since he would have been more of a robot or something with that design element left in. But I just decided to go with fighting type. He looks like a brawler. By the way, the target I put on his chest is not intended to proudly show off his exact weak point. It's an homage to the Toon Squad logo in Space Jam, which itself is most likely based off of the background rings in the outro of the Looney Tunes cartoons, where the text says, "That's all, folks." Well, I guess it really would be all, folks, if he was hit there, if Pikachu zapped him in his chest or whatever them Pokemans do. So then it came time to name these critters. For the first evolution, I kept thinking of Bugs Bunny related words that I could smash together, and at first I came up with Melby, after Bugs' original voice actor Mel Blanc. And that's a pretty cute name, but I eventually ended up with Mini Mel, because of Mel Blanc, and because he's so small. Also, Mini Mel. Minimal. Because he's so small. And the second evolution, literally just Bugs Bunny, like his original name, but it's all one word. And the name for the final evolution is something I came up with after looking at the design and remembering that mid-2000s spin-off of the Looney Tunes called Lunatics Unleashed, where all the characters are edgy action heroes. Now, I never watched that show, so I can't comment on the show's quality. I've heard it's bad. I mean, it's a crazy idea to be sure, but I decided to call this final evolution Lunatic, with a K, because it's cooler that way. So that's Bugs Bunny all done. I'll color all of these in at the end of the video, but I wanted to start things off with a rough line art. For now, let's move on to...
Kick it into the girl bunny.
Yeah.
Down in the post. You dish it back out to the guy bunny.
Got it.
So with Lola, I did pretty much the same thing as with Bugs. I made a smaller baby Lola for the first evolution, and went somewhere completely out of left field for the third evolution. But we'll get to that when we get to that. I like doing Lola because people primarily associate her with like raw cartoon sex appeal, and while I totally get it, I've definitely indulged in that myself. It was nice to finally, for once, do something with Lola that wasn't focused on how sexy she is. Nope, just drawing some Pokemon evolutions based on her. Now, unlike Bugs, I actually did change a bit about Lola's design here. Since her original design has clothes, I had to find a way to incorporate that design element into the evolutions. So I gave her a Thumper-style chest floof piece, which I think is really cute. Also, for the last 2 evolutions, I gave her a big hairpiece on the back, just to add a bit of extra flair. In fact, I added a lot of extra flair, because, you know, Pokemon. Pokemon is all about raw evolution-based aesthetic. It's about fighting and looking cute while doing it. Unless you're one of the many decidedly non-cute Pokemon, but that's completely subjective. You could make the argument that they're all cute, and you could probably come up with some solid evidence for each of them. The funny thing about Pokemon that plays a major factor into my design philosophy here is that Pokemon can't have clothes, since they're basically animals. That wouldn't make sense. They can, however, have clothing-shaped fur patterns or weird flesh bits that happen to take the shape of clothes. My favorite example of this is Braixen. The fur on her waist makes a cute little skirt shape, and she has a sort of curved fluff ornament surrounding her shoulders. It looks like she's wearing a cute little dress. I love Braixen. She's my favorite Pokemon as far as aesthetic is concerned. I also like Gardevoir because there's just the faintest hint of femininity about her. It's so subtle, and yet it's enough to put her at the top of those questionable rankings of the sexiest Pokemon, which could be its own video, but let's not go there just yet. So for the final evolution, again, I just got weird with it. I guess based on the vibes this final evolution gives off, she would be a sort of a fighter/psychic type. Fighter in that she, well, punches really hard, and psychic because she weakens her targets by infusing them with lust, distracting them and lowering their defense. See, that's an idea. Game Freak should totally hire me. By the way, it's kind of funny how I wrote all that stuff about how my evolutions are completely weird and random and make no sense. But after I looked it up, it turns out that a lot of Pokemon evolutions don't make any sense. I mean, look at Psyduck. Then look at Golduck. Yeah, he's blue now. Also, his name is Golduck and he's blue. They could have at least called him Blue Duck. Whatever. Anyway, I named the evolutions, of course. When naming the first evolution, my first thought was naming her after that famous novel by Vladimir Nabokov, but I didn't want any unfortunate implications. So I called her Lilia. Little Lilia. And then the second evolution is Lola, and I didn't call her Lola Bunny because I just kind of felt that having all the names end with A would be a nice way to tie all the evolutions together. And for the final evolution, I went with something regal and fancy sounding. Lorelia. So Lilia, Lola, and Lorelia. Very good. I'm quite pleasantly surprised at my ability to freestyle Pokemon design so far. Is it too late to mention that I've never actually played any of the Pokemon games? Okay, that was a bit of a lie. I've played me some Pokemon in my day, just not very much. I'm definitely a bit out of the loop, but I have heard a lot about it. I mean, it's a game about cute animals fighting each other, of course I was gonna develop an interest. Anyway, it's time for Daffy. Now, Daffy was hard to get right, at least at first. I pulled up an image of Psyduck for reference and quickly realized that Psyduck was too simple to pull from, so I just did what I did the first time and winged it. Or I wung it. Every time I say wing it in past tense, I keep thinking of wung it, even though it's wrong. I tried to mix things up with the pose of the first evolution by having him punch his hand to show that he means business. I also didn't want the final evolution of Daffy to just be a larger, buffer version of Daffy. I wanted to do something different, and it was hard to figure out at first, but I realized I could just make him a flying creature like an eagle. I could give him wings. Incidentally, I made Daffy a flying type, because he's a bird, it only makes sense. I also looked up Moltres and Ho-Oh as reference, and I used them to fill in for my lack of avian expertise. And I think it turned out pretty well, all things considered. As for names, for the first one I came up with Ducky. Very simple and to the point. The second evolution is just Daffy Duck, again one word. And for the final evolution, Daffodon, which is like the word daffodil but with a dinosaur-style suffix at the end. A lot of dinosaurs were more closely related to birds than reptiles, so I think it fits. And now we move on to... So with Sylvester it was kind of difficult because Pokemon already has like 3 different cats, at least. So I had to be at least sort of different. But I did want Sylvester to be somewhat inspired by Meowth, but only somewhat. Also I decided to make the first evolution a classic cat, you know, walks on 4 legs the whole 9 yards, or the whole 9 lives. Thank you, I'll be here all night. So I decided Sylvester is a fire type. Mostly because for his 3rd evolution I was vaguely inspired by Incineroar. Even though I didn't directly reference him, I just mostly remembered how buff he was, and how the internet sort of took to him because of it. And as a result, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Sylvester ended up being the sexiest one. Yes, that's right, in a list of characters that includes Lola Bunny, Sylvester is the hottest. I named him Sylvast because vast means huge, and he's a big boy. Oh, and also the other evolutions exist, right, sorry, I got distracted. For Sylvester's first evolution, I was struggling to find something based on Sylvester's name that would sound cute. And no, I didn't want to go with Sylveon, that's already taken. And I couldn't go with Mew, Mewtwo, or Meowth, because those are already pretty significant figures in Pokemon. Even someone who isn't all that familiar with Pokemon would notice if I stole their names, obviously. So at first I thought about being all jokey and calling him Mew1, but I eventually decided on Musil. Kind of weird, but undoubtedly unique, and undoubtedly the name of a cat. And in regards to Incineroar, I realized that making a fire-type cat that walks on 4 legs is far from original. Musil is pretty much just a ripoff of Torracat, even though I was not referencing or even thinking about Torracat when drawing Musil. But this is about turning the Looney Tunes into Pokemon. It's not about being original, okay? That's not the goal here. Someone out there could do a far better job at this than me, but I'm doing it anyway because I love art, and this has been an interesting experiment so far. So, Musil, Sylvester, and Sylvast. Looking good so far. I can already see myself improving with each drawing. While I was pretty rough and sketchy with bugs, while doing Sylvester I ended up making much more refined drawings with a smaller brush size. So the drawings overall are more detailed. I even did away with the beady eyes and just gave the Sylvester evolutions normal eyes, with the exception of Sylvast's blank glowy eyes. Which works out because I don't think Sylvast would look as powerful if I gave him pupils. I had this problem with Lorelia too. There was no direction for her to be looking that made sense. So I made them super big and beady so that she would look like she was looking in all directions at once, like an omniscient elemental specialist Pokemon. Also for Sylvast, blink eyes are cool, they make him look very powerful. So that's all the Looney Tunes Pokemon sketched out. Now all that's left to do is finish the line work for each of them and color it all in. And then we should have a pretty solid series of Pokemon drawings. I'll quickly finish each of them in time-lapse form, and then I'll talk about the coloring decisions I made, and maybe some other stuff as well. So I went with a blue, yellow, red color scheme for Lunatic, and I decided that Bugs Bunny, the second evolution, would also share that color scheme, since I didn't want Lunatic's design to be completely out of nowhere relative to the rest of the evolutions. A common philosophy that I think works well in regards to color is to try and use as few colors as possible. When you choose a color, try and apply it to as many parts of the design as you can get away with. For Lunatic, I used the same orange for both the fists, the toes, and the central triangular bits on his chest. Also, the target shape and his eyes are the same red. In addition, I selected the characters, grew the selection by 1 pixel, then filled it in, making the outer silhouette larger than the rest of the lines. This makes the characters stand out from the background even more. For the shading, I wanted to keep it simple. I have a tendency to overthink the shading when I draw, and it has always made me shy away from crisp, definite shading, since I always worried that people would instantly be able to tell when it was wrong. But it's much easier to get it right when you keep it simple. I pretty much only shaded areas that overlap with other areas, like the neck, or here where the knee overlaps the other leg. I think keeping it simple helps with the overall style. It makes everything look that little bit more polished. One final thing I feel like mentioning is the fact that the lines are colored to match the overall color palette of the characters. Since the Bugs Bunny evolutions are mostly blue, I colored the outlines dark blue, with the exception of Minimel, whose outlines are gray. This makes everything more cohesive and acts as a final bit of polish. Just like with Bugs, I didn't want Daffy Duck's crazy color scheme to be completely out of nowhere, so I made the other 2 evolutions different colors. I decided that making Ducky red and Daffy Duck blue would be an interesting choice, making the overall image a sort of exercise in primary colors. Basically, the theme of this image is just an explosion of colors, but with some restraint and attention to make sure everything still feels whole. In fact, if anything, I showed more restraint than Chuck Jones did with the iconic flowerhead dinosaur creature in Duck Amuck that Daffy gets unwillingly turned into. In that respect, I think Daffy Duck oddly fits with the Looney Tunes canon, since Daffy has technically been a weird, colorful creature before. Also, his aggressive attitudes are reflected in the first 2 evolutions, where Daffy and Ducky are completely no-nonsense and clearly ready to fight. I actually really like how Lorelia turned out. I went in a completely unorthodox direction and made her an omniscient elemental spellcaster, with magic stuff coming out of her hands that can either heal or harm, depending on how Lorelia feels about you. As for Lilia and Lola, they both have the same color scheme, which is what I wanted to avoid with Daffy, but here it works pretty well, I think. And like I said earlier, I had to convert her clothes into fluff bits, and the yellow of her hair is now propagated across her entire design, which fits the Pokemon aesthetic pretty well, I think. Also, Lilia is super cute. I would absolutely protect her at all costs. The Sylvester evolutions are my personal favorite. Like with Daffy and Bugs, I completely changed Sylvester's color scheme to better fit with the concept of Pokemon. I didn't want Sylvester to be a plain black and white like he is in the original cartoons. I wanted something more colorful. And since I made him a fire type, I wanted it to reflect in the color palette. As such, Sylvester has dark red fists and his primary fur color is a muted purple. He's strong, he's buff, and he shows no sympathy for anyone who crosses him. Also, if the original cartoons are any indication, let's just say that the flying type Pokemon would probably be weak against him. So that's all the Looney Tunes Pokemon. I actually really like doing this. I feel like working on this little project was a much needed creative revitalization for me. It reminded me of the power of character design and how you can do literally whatever you want. Even if it sounds stupid in theory, it's all about how you execute it. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you want to see more of this. Or if you think my designs completely contradict the extensive Looney Tunes lore. I would love to see someone tell me that the Lola evolutions are completely out of character for her, since as we all know, Lola's complex personality is what really elevated Space Jam and made it an enduring masterpiece. But yeah, this was fun. Thank you for watching this video. I'm trying to see if I can maintain a consistent upload schedule on this channel. I have other videos planned, but I feel like I might just end up turning random characters into Pokemon over and over. Who knows? I'm new to this whole video thing. And as always, thank you for watching and remember to stay cute.